Okay. I think, fingers crossed. I think we are live. Keri, are you unmuted? There you go.
Hi. I'm
Excellent. Welcome everyone to Deprogrammed on Unsafe Space, live every Thursday at 11. And hit the subscribe button. Don't forget. What? Can you not hear me now? We're gonna have technical issues.
I can hear you now. Okay. It was like for a second you were way delayed.
Sometimes we have massive technical issues. Yeah, don't forget to hit the subscribe button right over there in the right hand corner. Go hit it. Yeah, you can go to unsafespace.com for a whole bunch of stuff. You can support us by going to Subscribe Star. Look for Unsafe Space there. Yeah. I don't know. We usually have guests on Deprogrammed, but
not usually. Sometimes.
I think over 50% of the time we have guests on Deprogrammed.
Okay.
And I like having guests. I want to have guests. But we also want to really have this discussion today because it's been a point of contention between me and Keri in a friendly way. And also, for those of you who want to have an interview, want to hear us interview someone, we did just do an interview with Dr. Rachel Fulton Brown and from the University of Chicago. And I will post that later today. It's edited. It's done. I finished editing it last night. So we had Keri, it was almost a 2-hour discussion with her. It was a long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but it was great. Yeah, she's amazing. She's one of my heroes. I put her in the same, we talk to a lot of brave people. I'd say the ones who really blow me away sometimes are the ones who are just like seem fearless in the face of constant attack. And so I would put her in the same category as like Megan Murphy, who we talked to in that regard, or Julian Davis, and just being, I'm going to seek and speak the truth no matter what people think about me or say about me. And yeah, she's great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. So, we can check that out later today. Keri, maybe while we're sitting here, because there's not really people in chat right now, so we can wait for a sec. I'm going to tweet out the link, the live link to everyone and say, hey, here we are, in case people want to check it out.
Oh, I guess then I can pull up the chat.
Yes, I'm pulling up the chat also. See all the things. If we had a fancy producer, we could be talking about stuff while this is all. But I will do it now. Okay, we're live. Here's the URL, world. Alrighty. Done. Okay.
I found that I could at the gym yesterday, that the treadmill machines, I could put them on YouTube and I could watch whatever I wanted and have to watch the stupid CNN. It's exciting. So yesterday I watched a bunch of triggering. I watched some bearing.
Keith is pointing out that nobody is here in chat. So, Keith, you're not supposed to say that. It's unspoken. You can't say that. Now we have to call attention to our vacant chat. It's okay. It won't be vacant forever. People come in. They just don't come in early. So, by the way, I'm gonna drink this crappy yerba mate. I can't find the one I like. They're out of it. So I'm gonna try this new one.
You froze up. Okay, there.
All right. Keri, let's talk. So first we should tell people Godwins Law will be triggered today. We're going to talk about Hitler. There's no way to not talk about evil people without talking about Stalin and Hitler and some of those people. So I'm definitely Godwins lying. I'm violating Godwins Law today. Keri, the impetus for this discussion, I guess is the best way to put it, is you and I have had a disagreement about specifically calling social justice warriors evil. I'm much more apt to say they're evil people. And you're much more apt to say, no, they're good people with good intentions.
I don't say good.
Whatever, they're misled. They're misled people. I'm trying to put words in your mouth. They have good intentions, though, you do say, and they're just misled. So that's the origin of this discussion. And I guess we can get into some specifics, but I first want to just back up and make sure we're kind of on the same page on a few basic things. Is it okay to call anyone evil? Like, is Hitler evil in your book? It's okay, right?
I guess so. Yes, I think it's okay to call some people evil, especially in the third person.
You wouldn't call Hitler evil to his face? But
well, it depends on what I was trying to do. Am I sitting having a conversation with him, trying to convince him,
I don't know,
to stop committing evil? Then I probably wouldn't call him evil to his face. I would talk about his actions being.
Yeah, but you're not okay. You're not a negotiator.
No, but that's my point. Is it's a big difference between third person and second person. I'm third person and directly talking with someone. I was in a conversation with someone yesterday who, and when I said my kindness was in low supply, this horrible person. Now in the third person, I'm going to tell you, this person's horrible. She's awful. She's a bully. She behaves in a bullying way. She's an SJW, of course, completely myopic and hypocritical, and like engages in the worst kind of projection where she's just literally referring to the person that she's attacking and bullying in a hateful way as being hateful, like, and not even seeing that it's her. And this other person receiving it was like not giving it back to her, was actually being very civil in response, despite being called names and stuff. So I mean, this person's awful. Now in the third person, when I talk to you about her, would I be like, is she horrible? Yes.
Well, but that's the only part of the conversation we're having. We're not having a what's the best way to talk to someone face to face, because we've never argued about that. I've never said you should go tell people you're evil as a way to like convince them of anything. That's right. What has happened is they're evil, and you'd be like, well, no, they're not all evil. Don't say that.
Well, they're not all. This woman I'm talking about is, but they're not all. A lot of them have good intent. This woman, I do not believe.
It's fine. I just want to.
Yeah. There's such a delay, Carter. You keep freezing. I think it might be on my end.
Yeah, no. There's a very real case of Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. Say something. You're frozen again. Let me shut down all my other windows.
Oh, the delays for everyone, huh?
Yeah, and you're frozen in place right now. Okay, there you go.
Keri?
Yeah.
Keri, I just my wireless networks in case it was a wireless network problem.
Okay.
So if it still happens, I'm not sure what I can do about it, but
okay.
Yes, C. Brown said that he can hear, he or she, I don't know who C. Brown is, can hear the delay as well. She. Thank you. Sir can Z can hear the delay. So this became a real thing because specifically
oh my gosh. If you can hear me, you're totally frozen in place. Okay, I don't know, Carter. I'm gonna. It's always something. Maybe I should try to leave and come back. Okay, guys, if you're still watching, it's me. It's Keri. Today's Deprogrammed with Keri and Carter, who's back. Okay.
You know what? And why don't you entertain everyone for a while? I'm going to just reboot my entire computer. I don't like it. This only happens at Thursdays during Deprogrammed. Every other time we do this, I am fine. But Thursdays during Deprogrammed, I don't know what the fuck it is. I'm so frustrated. I'm gonna reboot.
Okay, well, I've got some quotes that I want to. Okay, I've got some quotes I wanted to read anyway. So I'll catch you up when you come back. But I wanted to read these because I was thinking about it yesterday in preparing for this conversation that we're going to have about the way that good people can be convinced to participate in evil, or people who are otherwise who have good intentions. And so there's a lot of quotes that I've been collecting over the past couple of years. And yesterday I started reorganizing them in a certain order. And I thought this was a really great order. So I'm going to read some of these if you guys don't mind. Our blight is ideologies. They are the long expected Antichrist. Okay, that was a Carl Jung quote. This one, which I'm sure some of the people who watch our show have heard before, which is to do evil, a human being must first of all believe that what he's doing is good. Fortunately, it's in the nature of the human being to seek a justification for his actions. Ideology, that is what gives evildoing its long-sought justification and gives the evildoer the necessary steadfastness and determination. That is the social theory which helps to make his acts seem good instead of bad in his own and in others' eyes. That was how the agents of the Inquisition fortified their wills, by invoking Christianity, the conquerors of foreign lands by extolling the grandeur of their motherland, the colonizers by civilization, the Nazis by race, and the Jacobins early and late by equality, brotherhood, and the happiness of future generations. Thanks to ideology, the 20th century was fated to experience evildoing on a scale calculated in the millions. Without evildoers, there would have been no archipelago. And that was Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And then this one, this is a C.S. Lewis quote that, again, I think just flows perfectly from the other two. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep. His cupidity may at some point be satiated. But those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own conscience. So these quotes, I mean, and there's a couple more about how to stop tyranny. I mean, there's the quote, Alexander Solzhenitsyn quote about a single person who stops lying can bring down a tyranny. The George Orwell quote, in times of universal deceit, telling the truth will be a revolutionary act. These things I think are really important to what we see happening right now with SJW ideology and how far it's bled into the mainstream, because I think a lot of people who push it, they actually do believe they're doing good. I completely agree with this Solzhenitsyn quote, which is that in order to do evil, to do some of the most evil things possible, you have to first believe that it's actually a good thing that you're doing. And so when Carter and I, who hopefully will be back in a second, when Carter and I disagree about this, I think it's most often because either we're disagreeing about whether or not we're talking about a person, you know, in a direct conversation with them, or if we're talking about them in the third person, because I don't think it helps when I'm talking to someone to call them evil. But I also think we disagree about there being two types of people who support this belief system. So there are the people who I would call evil in the third person, you know, when I'm not discussing with them. But then there are the people who I just don't believe they are not evil. Have they been convinced to support and to preach an evil belief system? Yes, but that doesn't reflect on their soul, for lack of a better word. Like, and I think those people can be swayed. So I think that distinction is important because they have the same hope. In some cases, the ones I'm talking about that I don't think are evil, they have the same desired end goals as me. Our why is the same. It's just that our what and our how are different. Are you back, Carter?
Well, we don't know. I think I'm back. I heard your explanation.
You missed all the great quotes, but I can fill you in on this.
In the chat there seemed to be some great quotes, or people like responding to the quotes. So I heard the tail end of this. So here's the thing. I'm not arguing that you should call people evil to their face if you're trying to convince them. That's just stupid. That's not my argument. My argument is that it is important to be able to call people evil in society. It's important to be able to do that. And The question is, when do we do that? So, for example, one of the reasons it's important to be able to do that is a thing that bothers me. For example, people will call Kim Jong-un crazy. He's not crazy. He's evil. Crazy releases him from moral responsibility for his actions. Crazy is a way to say, like, wow, can't blame him. He's just a loon, right? He's not crazy. He's evil. Hitler wasn't crazy. Hitler was evil. And evil is a way to call someone evil is to pass a summary judgment on their actions in general. It doesn't mean they're always evil, right? For all I know, Hitler was nice to his mother or something. I don't know, right? I mean, people can be, you can be like, go home to your wife and kids and be a good dad and then, go to Auschwitz and kill people. Like that can happen. You're still an evil person. And you're called evil because the sum of your actions, the kind of math of adding up your actions. Yes, it's nice that you patted some dog on the head and you gave a homeless guy $5, but you went and killed 20 people today. That outweighs whatever nice things that you've done. And it's through your actions that we judge people, not through what they want to do. If you go down this path where like, well, they meant well, they were, our hearts in the right place, or we have similar goals. You could literally make the argument that Stalin meant well, or that Hitler meant well. You don't know what people actually mean. They might mean well, but be totally wrong and pushing an ideology that is itself evil, and they thus become evil. You become evil through your actions, not through what you say or what you mean to do. There's a quote in V for Vendetta that I love, where he goes and he's going to kill Deirdre, the coroner, and she's feeling remorse. She was evil and she turned into good. She realized she had been evil in the past and she was trying to come to terms with that, and she was feeling very guilty. And she describes to him like, well, I meant to do this and I wanted to do this. And he says something very simple, which is profound and true. He says, I've not come for what you hoped to do. I came for what you did. That's what matters. Actions matter. So some social justice person who just believes it all and thinks it all, and that's fine. Would I call them evil? No, I would call them wrong. Someone who spends their career pushing it is evil, because that's the action that they have chose to make the center of their life, pushing an evil ideology. And the reason to call them evil is because ostracizing works.
I disagree.
Well, let me finish. Ostracizing people works. The reason that we have, so the way to peacefully separate people and put social pressure is to ostracize them. It's why you say so-and-so is evil or so-and-so is this or whatever. It places pressure on them. And when you have, for example, a friend who is a career social justice warrior or pushing social justice ideology, and you don't ostracize them, you don't say they're evil, I'm not going to sanction their behavior anymore. They get to go home and think, oh, I guess I am pretty good after all. They don't have to face any ostracization. Everyone around you sees that you don't ostracize them. And I think you lose a hell of a lot of credibility by saying social justice is bad, but I'm buddies with people who push it for a living.
No, I'm buddies. I mean, that I don't know what that means, but am I friends with some people who push it for a living? Yes. And do I believe it's...
And that's my argument. You shouldn't be.
Well, I think you're completely wrong, and I think you're full of crap.
I know you do, but let's have a discussion other than...
Yeah, I will. Which is, your method is never going to change hearts and minds, ever. What's that, Martin?
That is absolutely not true.
No, it is true. No, it is true. Listen, yes, you will not. I do not believe that you change. What's the Martin Luther King Jr. quote? What is it? Like, the dark cannot drive out the darkness. Hatred cannot drive out hatred. Only love can do that. There are people with whom I have a loving relationship, and they still believe what I used to believe. And by the way, I used to push this professionally. Like you said, I pushed it. I was a comedy manager. I worked in entertainment. I managed comedians, and I was a television, film, and web content producer. And everything I did in that world, that I was trying to push my beliefs through entertainment, because I thought that was the way to create a better world and to end racism and sexism. And I thought this is the way to do good in the world. I thought I was doing good. That's why that quote resonates with me so much. Now, do I believe that I was pushing an evil ideology now in retrospect? Yes. Do I think I was an evil person back then? No. And that's a big difference. And I have friends who are like me, who are still pushing it, who did not have that.
Well, I have a question for you. Can I clarify something quickly?
Yeah.
When I say, I would have said, yes, you were an evil person, and now you're a good person, and you recognize that you were evil, and you're trying to atone for your evil.
Carter, I am not a good person. I don't know, but
I don't want to get religious, but okay. Like whatever. Like you recognize that you were evil, and you tried to make up for it, because we do allow people to atone. So when I say someone's evil, I don't mean they are irredeemably evil for now and forever and can never not be an evil person. I mean, the way to judge their actions now, the summary of who they are now, is they're evil. Someone who's like, so let me ask you another question. Because to me, this is the same thing. If you knew someone who believed in Nazism and was running a school for Hitler Youth out of the goodness of their heart because they thought that this was the right thing, would you say, wow, I don't want to call them evil. That's going a step too far. They're good people.
No, I wouldn't say good people. That's
okay. So what are they? Do you not call them evil?
It depends on the person.
No, it depends on their actions.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Okay. So this is our fundamental thing. You think what makes someone evil or not evil is their intent, and I do not. I think it's a slippery slope if you do the intent thing. Is that true? Am I characterizing your position correctly?
Yeah, I do think intent matters. I think, and actually SJWs like to say that intent doesn't matter, but to me it does, because people who have a shared, okay, so I know I've mentioned it, but whenever I read a book, it's like that book is the book that's most recent on my mind. So I just finished reading Love Your Enemies by Arthur Brooks, and he talks about finding your shared why with people. Now he specifically is talking about how to change this culture of contempt that we find ourselves in, where we are the most polarized since that we've been since the Civil War. People are in polls, we are the most divided we've ever been since the Civil War. And we're more likely to believe that the other side is evil now than we used to be. Like the numbers have skyrocketed, where it's not just people believe, oh, the people who disagree with me are wrong. They believe those people are evil. Well, when you believe someone is evil, one problem with this is that when you believe someone is evil, it makes it harder to view them as like part of a system of compromise. So like Republicans and Democrats, for example, I'm just going to roughly speaking, let's say people on the right and left, you need each other. You need each other to have a system that works, because you're going to balance each other's views. And you're going to,
I don't think I even agree with that.
You don't think you agree with that? Well, okay. Well, think about it in the way that Jordan Peterson talks about it, which is that people who are more, you've got some people, liberal people tend to be higher on the openness scale, right? Like they're more creative. And then people on the right, typically on average, tend to be more industrious and more conscientious, and they have better work ethic. And so he's like, for example, if you have a company, you want both of those types of people. You want creative people, and you want the people who have good work ethic, because they're going to balance each other out and work together well. But if we're living in a place where we're only associating with people who are like us or believe what we do, and we think anyone who believes differently is necessarily evil, then it's like we don't view them as human anymore. We don't view them as
You're mischaracterizing what I said. I'm not
mischaracterizing what you said. I'm talking about this book.
Okay. I didn't say that. To be clear.
No, I didn't say you did.
Okay.
I'm talking about this book.
Okay, fair.
So this book deals with this question of evil as well, because in this book, he's making the case that we are too quick to write people off as evil. And when we do that, we just become more polarized, and we're not able to work together. It ends up in this inevitable place of civil war, or, so the purpose of his book is to help people. I would say the purpose of his book is to help people learn to, well, it's called Love Your Enemies. It's about like approaching people that you disagree with vehemently with love. And it's about trying to change contempt and change it to compassion, and to operate from a place of compassion. I realize that's different than what you're talking about. I'm just bringing it up because it's interesting. And that also affects kind of what I think about calling people evil.
Well, go ahead. I couldn't tell. You froze for a second, so I thought you were done, but I don't know if you were.
I was just saying it also affects like what's on my mind when I approach this discussion, because do I think that there are some people, he doesn't go to a place of like, what about the people who are actually committing evil, right? Like he doesn't go there. And one of the failings of the book, I think, is that he doesn't acknowledge that it's not just a matter of people who disagree with one another calling each other evil, that there's a large and growing ideology on the left that is a very evil ideology. He kind of talks about how the extremes are very small on each side, but we treat each other like we're all the extremes. I'm like, the extremes on the left are not very small anymore. Like the extreme is at least maybe not in terms of numbers, but in terms of power and influence and voice, that ideology is predominant on the left now. And it is an evil ideology. You and I agree on that.
Yeah, no, we agree on the evil ideology. I want to. I lost my train of thought. So one of the biggest threats to Western civilization right now. By the way, I think it's funny that the atheist is arguing for more objective morality, and you're more of a moral relativist on this, but that's a separate issue. One of the biggest threats to Western civilization right now is not that people don't stand for what they believe in and call out evil when they see it. That's not a big threat. A big threat is moral relativism. Moral relativism, and moral relativism is a tool used by the nihilists and by what Jordan Peterson would call neo-Marxists. Moral relativism is used specifically so they can sidestep being morally condemned for their actions. And that the philosophy of moral relativism, I mean, one of the reasons that a lot of religious right is upset, like the Dennis Prager video that I did a thing about a few weeks ago, they're worried that without God, I mean, again, I'm an atheist, but the argument is that without God, you only have moral relativism, and that's scary and recognized as a really bad thing. Moral relativism is horrible, and on that, I agree with Prager. I don't agree that you need God to have objective morality, but I do agree that moral relativism is horrible. And we've got most secular philosophers are moral relativists. A lot of people are, and moral relativism has permeated our society. We have a moral relativist cancer. It's pretty deep. It runs pretty deep. And so I am not arguing that, hey, you need to go say everyone who disagrees with me is evil. They're not. They just disagree with you. I completely agree with that. However, because I think moral relativism is a threat, I think it's important to be able to stand firm on moral grounds and judge people based on their actions. And again, I'm not saying if someone's evil, I'm not saying they're irredeemably evil. I'm not saying they can't change, right? But I think to call a person evil, so you could do an evil thing, like you could have, let's say in a moment of passion, you do something, you hit someone, or you even murder someone, right? As a society, we allow that to be a somewhat redeemable offense. We're like, okay, you did an evil act, kind of think you're a bad person because you murdered someone, but if you immediately atone for it and you're really sorry and you change your life massively and you really try and make up for it, not that you can ever make up for it, but if you really treat it with significance later and demonstrate your recognition of that evil and are a changed person, then later in life we can say like, yeah, this is a good person now. He was a really evil person in his youth. He did these things, and whatever he did, he went through some program. He came to Jesus as an often one of the things, right? He found Jesus, whatever it is now, and then we say he's a good person. So it's not saying someone evil is not irredeemable, but it needs to be a judgment on their actions for one simple reason. You don't know people's motivations. You will never know why they do something. The fact that they say why they do something is also rarely the real reason. Usually most people are acting out of psychological drivers and using rationalizations to justify their behavior. So
right, but I think it's possible to know a person. That's why I said it depends on the person. I'd have to know who they are and know them. Like this friend of mine who you and I disagree about, the one who teaches this system to kids or has okay. So I know her well enough to know, like, I love her. Do you know what I mean? Like,
no, I don't know what you mean. What do you love about her? What do you love about this woman who is pushing social justice ideology on our children? What to love about this woman? Is she nice to dogs?
Well, she is nice to dogs, but that's not why I love her.
What do you love about her?
Why do you love anyone?
For their values. For the values they represent.
And I have the same why.
Everyone has the same why. If you go high enough, everyone's got the same why. I want there to be world peace. Everyone wants world peace.
No, but maybe. I actually don't think everyone wants world peace. Like you said, I think there are a lot of people who have very bad intent.
Sure, some people don't, but
right. This person sincerely, it is my belief, sincerely, because she's not just someone I know casually, believes that this is the way to end evils. Okay, so how is she any different than me? It's just that what I believe now is different.
That's moral relativism speaking. That's what that is. And that's a danger. And the left will use that moral relativism against you. Because they'll call you evil all fucking day long. They'll call you a Nazi and a fascist and an evil whatever. They'll call every name in the book, they'll call you.
Right, but so how do you set yourself apart from them then?
Losing. The reason that the right sucks and the reason the right loses is because the right has conceded to moral relativism. They did it a long time ago.
No, actually, I mean, I don't know if I agree with that, because I think you have to offer people something different if you're asking them to make a leap and to change. So if I'm saying, hey, what you guys are doing is wrong because you just call anyone who disagrees with you evil, but you're evil. Like, it's not like I'm offering them anything different. You have to model behavior that's different.
No, I'm not saying that you do that instead of an argument. I'm not saying you call them evil instead of an argument. You say, look, these are the things you're doing. Every morning you wake up, you go to work, you whip little children and beat puppies. That makes you an evil person. Those are the things that make you evil. Those are bad acts. You've made them part of your life. It's consistent. Well, it's not like a one
examples thing. Because those are not good examples. I mean, we all agree whipping puppies is evil.
We all agree that indoctrinating kids with social justice and turning them into racist is evil?
No, we don't, because that's not what she believes she's doing. And just like, okay, so
I don't think kicking puppies is evil. Like, you could make the same argument. That's moral relativism. If you believe it's evil, then you have to say it's evil, and you can't forgive other people and say, well, they have a different moral system, therefore it's not evil for them. It doesn't matter. If you believe it's wrong to kick a puppy, then it's wrong to kick a puppy.
Yeah, of course. We're not talking about kicking puppies. We're talking about beliefs.
What if she says she kicks puppies because she thinks it's good?
She doesn't. Can we talk about what's really happening? Because you're creating a hypothetical that I think is ridiculous. Like,
why?
Because it's ridiculous. Let's take a real. Why create a hypothetical when there's a real thing we can talk about? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, I'm trying to pick something that will resonate with you, because to me, as a parent, I think I would rather that person wake up every day and kick puppies all day long than indoctrinate kids into racism. That is less evil to me.
Okay. My point is, though, that you're not, from her point of view, she is not indoctrinating kids into something evil. She is teaching kids how to end evil. That is what she believes. What I believe I'm doing with this podcast is teaching people how to end evil, is teaching people how to fight this evil ideology. So
But you're stuck in moral relativism.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not, because I used to be where she was at. So how am I? God, Carter, it's like you don't offer any path out of hell for people at all. It's like, just stay in hell. You're a hellish person.
I'm not offering a path out of hell. You're not hearing me. I'm offering paths out of hell.
Well, look, let me ask you this. This is in the comments. Somebody's pointed this out. I feel like this is personally, sometimes I feel like this is a pointless conversation because, as someone says in the comments, why is it so important to call a person evil or not evil? Isn't it just enough to say they're doing evil? Exactly. It's not important.
No, it's not.
No,
it is important.
Why?
Right. It is important.
Why?
It gets back to how peaceful societies function. They function through ostracism instead of the gun. So instead of forcing people to do things by fiat or using guns, i.e. the government, to force people to behave in certain ways, you implement behavioral norms and you ostracize people who consistently break those norms, and you label them as a shortcut so that people know, oh, that's for example, that guy's a cheat. You don't have to date him. Don't bother with him. That guy's a cheat. Is he a cheat because he cheated once? I don't know. Maybe that's a separate discussion. But if he consistently cheats on girls, the other girls say, well, that guy's a cheat. And they don't have to explain it. They don't have to say, well, he has cheating behavior. He gets a label. Labels are useful. Labels are useful intellectually. Labels are very useful to take an abstract concept and classify it. And you can say, okay, well, that guy needs to be avoided. And in order for him to gain the respect and come back into the community, he has to demonstrate that his behavior has changed, that he has made a monumental change as a human being, and he's no longer the person that he was. We're never the person that we were yesterday. We're constantly changing as human beings. So he has to demonstrate that he's changed the kind of person he is. And ostracism is the way that society holds together. And without ostracism, you have to have laws and guns. That's what happens. You get leftists saying, we need to force people to say these things and talk to people this way and use this language and do it. Like, that all comes from not ostracizing people. It comes from moral relativism, oddly enough, being afraid to say it's not. I think people are reacting too much to calling someone evil. Like, why not? Why not call someone evil?
Because why? It doesn't get you anywhere, and
why not?
It doesn't get you because it doesn't work. It's not practical. And by the way, it's funny no, it's not practical.
Describe their behavior. It's a behavior.
No. Then talk about their behavior. Don't talk about them. But it's funny you're saying this because I actually had a conversation with a friend last night in which it's funny. I said to him, I have previously called you a liar and a cheat. But you are not a liar and a cheat. You are someone who has cheated and lied. And if you start to think of yourself as a liar and a cheat, and I am sorry I have called you that because that is not your identity. And if you lock yourself into that identity, I am a liar and a cheat, like, it can be hard to change your behavior because you start to believe that's who you are. And so I actually apologized to this person because I was like, I should not have made that.
Well, I think we're having two different conversations in some sense. Because I think when I say calling someone evil, you think, well, calling them evil isn't going to bring them around directly. And I think you're right about that. I think if you go up to people and say you're evil, that's not a great conversation opener. They're probably not going to be like, well, what do you think I should do? Like, that's not gonna go over well. However, two things. One is, you live in a society even the people that I'm talking about, there aren't that many. Even I'm not talking about all social justice warriors. There aren't actually that many who make it a career. It's not a huge number of people in society that I'm suggesting I call evil. There are a lot of people who are bystanders. There are a lot of people who see them, who see me, who see you, who see people around them. And when they see that, for example, if I say social justice is an evil ideology, but this person who's made it their career to push social justice is not evil, I'm not willing to call them evil, then the punishment, the social punishment that they get is pretty mild. Why not practice evil? So, but if I call them evil, other people around go, oh, why is that person being called evil? When someone's called evil, people react to it. They're like, well, why are they called evil? Am I evil? What is it about that? What actions did they do to be called evil. That's a harsh judgment. Calling someone evil means not just you did these actions that are evil, but you do these actions that are evil consistently over and over again with knowledge. You're devoted to doing these actions over and over again, regardless what your reasons are. And there needs to be a distinction between he did some bad things and he does bad things as a way of life, right? And that's the distinction. That's why you call someone evil. People around see that they're called evil and they react to that. But if you just run around saying, well, I'm not going to call anyone evil, I'm just going to say they sometimes do bad things, you don't appear to be someone who is confident enough in your morality that anyone wants to get behind at that point. It's like, well, yeah, but what's he going to do? He's never going to call me evil. I can do anything I want. I'll never be evil. I'll just be a person who did some evil things. Like, okay, fine, whatever. We all do evil things, right? That's you've whitewashed it to some extent. Calling someone evil is a condemnation of their not any particular actions that they're doing, but it's a condemnation of their chosen way of life. It's the actions that they're choosing to do consistently. And I think it's important to point that out. And I think it's important, if you have kids, it's important for your kids to see like, oh, my parents don't sanction evil. This person that is evil doesn't come over for dinner. This person that does all these evil things, like if I were friends with the person you're talking about, my daughter's head would explode. If I had this person over for dinner, she'd be like, Dad, this person is like a racist, pushing all this crap all the time. That's what they do for their living. Why are they in our house eating our food? What am I going to say? Well, that's important for intellectual debates, but in the real world, I don't care enough about morality to actually condemn them. I'm just gonna, I like the way they smile and we have some shared memories, so we're gonna hang out. You're muted, Keri. I can't.
That's not what it is. It's that you don't care enough about them to help change their mind by loving them. How do you think Daryl Davis pulled 200 people out of the KKK? It wasn't through refusing to invite them over for dinner. He befriended them. He became friends with these people. He loved these people. And they left.
If I was on a crusade to convince this person, then I might say, well, we're going to convince her she's evil, but
it doesn't have to be a crusade. It could just be a way of life. I'm not making it my crusade to change her mind. If she changes her mind, great. If she doesn't, great. But I'm not going to stop loving her because.
Well, then what does your love mean?
It means that I am trying to meet her where she is.
But who wants your love?
No, let me finish. I'm trying to meet her where she is, but treat her as if she was where she should be. It's a great quote. I'm mangling it, but I've heard that quote before. It's like, I cannot pretend like, I think there's something very arrogant and judgmental about being like, I'm going to cut off every single person who believes in this ideology I used to believe in, and they're never going to have dinner at my home. They're different. People are individuals. They're different. She is not the same as I can list on one hand, maybe the SJWs like her, who I do not consider professional SJWs, who I do not consider evil, versus a bazillion that I know who I do consider evil. But they're individuals. I'm not going to treat her the same way I treat this abhorrent person over here, who's behaved in a different way. Do they both push the same thing through their work? Yes. They both push the same belief system. Are they different people with different hearts? Yes. So you're asking me not to treat her like an individual.
So would you befriend an actual Nazi?
Maybe.
And you would be like, yeah, that's okay. I don't want to call you evil.
No, that's not, you're reducing it to something. She knows what I feel about her belief system. She watches the.
I guess my question is like, what are your standards? Like, so this is what I asked. I asked this. It sounds bad, but what does your love mean? If you give out love for things that are not values, what value is your love?
I don't. You and I disagree fundamentally that she has bad values. She doesn't.
She does have bad values.
She doesn't. She has good values. She has a very, very backwards idea of how to fulfill those values. I had good values when I was in SJW. I wasn't doing it because I thought I wanted to push racism. My values were to end those things. This ideology takes people and corrupts corrupts them because it convinces you that what you're doing is the exact opposite of what you're doing. It tells you, hey, the way to end these society's ills is to do X, Y, and Z. And then a lot of people are peddling the very things they think they're fighting, but they do believe they're fighting them.
Yeah, but so now I think we're getting into territory of what a value is. Values isn't stuff you say and feel. Values is reflected by what you choose to do in your actions. So you can say, I value going to the gym and being fit. But if you never ever go to the gym and all you do is eat ice cream, you don't value going to the gym and being fit. You don't value that. You can say that, but it is not true. And so someone who says, I value ending racism, but pushes social justice does not value ending racism.
I disagree.
They are completely capable
I disagree.
of understanding.
I disagree. It's like saying, like, I really want to go to grandma's house and someone gives me a map to a different place, but I think I'm on my way to grandma's house the whole time. I still really want to go to grandma's house. That doesn't change because somebody's giving me a wrong roadmap and I'm following the wrong directions.
It does, because the reason that analogy breaks down is when you are talking about morality, you have an obligation. So one of the hallmarks of actually not being evil is using your own judgment and being responsible for making the decisions yourself about morality. That's one of the hallmarks of not being evil. And if you can't do that, then you don't get to get out of the consequences of your actions. Again,
what is time to you though? If you can't do that, time is like when do you have to do that? At what time? At what expiration point? I wasn't doing that before I did that.
Can change. I'm saying people can change.
So then why are you
evil? They're evil now. They won't be evil later if they change. I've said that. I've said that.
So arrogant. You do.
It's not arrogant. Again, it gets back to this question of like the logic that you're using justifies Hitler because he can say, I mean well. Meaning well is irrelevant.
It is irrelevant to some degree, yes. It's not irrelevant to me when evaluating if I'm going to cut my friend out of my life or not. Her intent is relevant to me in that case.
Sure, but if you talk to her about it and she evades and doesn't understand the evil of her ways, eventually a consistent pattern of evading the truth, I would assume, diminishes her value as a friend to you.
Well, it's funny. Last time I've been up with her, we didn't really have to talk about this much because we have so much. We know. I know what she believes. She knows what I believe. We know how vehemently we are opposed. You know what we actually talked about? How to heal the divide. And dogs and salad. But we talked about how to heal the divide.
About that. How did you talk about healing the divide?
Well, again, I had just finished reading this book. And so we talked about a shared why versus different whats and hows, because that's something he talks about in the book, like finding your shared why, but you have a very, very fundamental, and in the case with me and her, we have, I believe, a common why. We just have a very radically different idea of what. But because we have that shared why, I don't view her as evil. And she doesn't view me as evil. So we're able to have conversations without it devolving. And one of the things we talked about was the thing that I'd started that's kind of, I've let dwindle for a little bit, but I've just decided we're doing one in July and I'm going to email people about now.
Sure you are.
No, we are. But civility dinners, when you're in person. So I was in person with her at lunch. When you're in person with someone, it is so much harder for you to dehumanize them. And it is so much, it lends itself towards you, if you really want to, it lends itself towards you trying to understand them better. She wants to understand why I believe what I believe. I want to understand why she still believes what she does. It's not, the people who don't want to understand, those are the people that I write off. Those are the people who, they're like robots, they're zombies, there is.
Do you think calling someone evil dehumanizes them? Is that what you're afraid of?
I guess so. Yeah. In some ways.
Interesting. I don't view it that way. Just curious.
Yeah. Like, I think calling someone deplorable dehumanizes them. I think calling someone parasites dehumanizes them.
Well, parasites does. I would say I don't think deplorable does, because it's a judgment of their actions. Theoretically, could be not when you're Hillary Clinton and you just blanket say, half the country's deplorable. But parasite, I mean, parasite is another organism, so it kind of by definition you're dehumanizing if you say these people are rats or parasites or roaches or leeches. Like, those are.
It's literally the opposite of anthropomorphizing. It's like.
Yes. So, but I don't view that when I say someone's evil. And again, I want to clarify, I'm not, I don't know the details of your relationship too much. So I'm not 100% certain the right way to approach your relationship. That's up to you and her. I'm making a general statement about when, for people who don't know her, and I would argue based on what I know about her, you should seriously consider this. People who, again, spend their careers pushing evil ideologies, they've earned the label evil, right? That's how you earn the label. Otherwise, no label. There's no reason to have the label.
I am so happy I met her when I did, because if I hadn't met her and gotten to know her when I did, I would probably, if I met her today, approach her the way you are and just write her off.
Well, I'm not approaching her.
No, but I'm saying I would look at her, I would have the same opinion, and I would write her off completely. I am grateful that I was able to meet her at the time and place I did in my life, because being friends with her is teaching me stuff now even.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think I don't know. I think we've really descended to. I'm watching the comments. Most people disagree with me, by the way. They agree with you, which is good. People will hate me for this. I think we've descended into moral relativism as a culture, and I think it's sad. Where other cultures aren't like this. Like I had this conversation with my wife, who's Chinese, and I said, "Oh, we're gonna have this discussion," and she's like, "Well, what's to talk about?" And I was like, well, you call people evil? And she's like, well, you judge people based on their actions. If they're consistently evil, then they're evil. I'm like, yeah, that's how it used to be, but it's not how it is anymore. People are afraid of conflict. People are afraid of looking like an asshole. People are afraid of being the one to say that someone's evil, unless you're there. So like, the only people that aren't afraid of that, it's weird. The good people are afraid of you. Like all these people in our chat, like I don't know them all personally, but I know you. The good people in the world are afraid to label people evil. They're the ones who are like, oh, I don't know. Because I think you feel like, wow, I wouldn't want to be labeled evil.
No, let's be clear. There are some who I believe are evil. I mean, I'll name a few. I think Michael Eric Dyson is evil. Like, I think some of my former professional SJW friends are evil. I will not name them because even though they're journalists and stuff, they're not as famous as him. But
what's the difference between them and your other friend that we're talking about in terms of their actions? How do they act differently to earn the evil?
Their heart is different, and those people. So one of them in particular, she had no interest in understanding why my beliefs changed. There was no heart there for me. Everything became cold once my beliefs changed. There was no interest from her at all. She's completely shut down. She has no introspection. There's not one part of her that I can tell that ever wonders if she might be wrong about anything. She's a completely hardened ideologue. And
but your friend isn't. Your friend wonders whether she's right or not. Like I think she
does. Yeah,
I don't know.
I think she does. In fact, she's had some experiences recently. Yes, she's open to questioning. And I think that's all the difference in the world. The one who I'm thinking of as an example, who I would call evil, who's been consumed by evil, her response to me was to unfriend me and publicly on Twitter call me a red-pilled alt-right troll. Right. And and to send her a little woke male minions to me to like attack me or something. I don't know. Anyway, like that's a heartless person who's not introspective and who, if this other friend, which she has shown an interest, has shown, her heart to me, is open to questioning herself, which I think she is, like, that's all different. That's different. And are they both pushing the same ideology through their different types of work? Yes, but they're different people. And so I'm not, I guess we do agree on some things. There are some people I'm willing to call evil, like who push this and sell this as a living. I think the famous, like the academics who are like Robin DiAngelo,
Right.
What's the dude I'm always picking on? I can't stand him. Sean King. Like, I think those people are evil. But I also don't know Sean King. Maybe if I knew him, I'd be like, I don't know. I doubt it. I think he's pretty rotten.
So I agree with you that there is I'm trying to understand. I agree with you. I think there is a relevant and important difference between people who refuse to have any self-criticism or question anything, and people who are even, so let's say two people who are both doing the exact same thing. Let's say two versions of your friend. One who is they're both doing the same thing. One who's kind of like you're saying she is, open to questioning and maybe asking, like wondering, why do you think something different, and blah blah blah. And the other one who's like, no, I'm not. Screw everyone. I'm not going to bother thinking about it. I think there is a distinction to be made there, and I think it's important. And the distinction that I would make is, I could see writing off the people who, if they're not going to even engage, then don't bother trying to engage with them. They're not engaging. So you can't save that class of people, basically, if they're not open to it. But there's the class of people who are doing the same things, but maybe you can save them, right? I would say they both get judged. For me, I would judge them both as evil based on their actions, but one as potentially redeemable. And so I'd be like, okay, well, this person's evil, but they don't have to be. They mean well. They're open to change. Like, I'm going to go try and have a conversation with them, because I think if they saw the truth of what was going on, they might change their mind and they might no longer be choosing evil on a regular basis. But I don't think it would prevent me from calling them evil, just because I don't know. It's weird. I don't know what the big deal is. I don't know. I think if you think of them as that,
I think if you think of them as that, it changes you in a way too. You're not going to be open to you're not going to be a good friend who loves them well if you're thinking of them that way. If I thought of her as evil, I'm not sure.
So you and I have different ideas of loving people as well. Like, so, I mean, I don't, someone wrote, like, I don't know, I don't know who it was. Someone said something to me to the effect of, like, love isn't transactional. You don't, like, do it for money. No, it's not. You don't do it for money, but, and it's not purely transactional. And there are different words for love. So I want to be clear. There's lots of, like, there's general love for humankind and blah, blah. There's lots of different versions of love. But when I'm talking about loving, like, a close friend or a partner or something like that, that love is earned through values, right? So it's not, they stand for things and behave in ways that I find admirable and virtuous, and that's what earns my friendship, right? That's what earns my friendship. And does it mean if they ever falter, I write them off? No, because there's a history of behavior and there's a shared value and shared history. And so, like, maybe I help them through a hard time, but if they seriously shift and are consistently, like, they turn, I'm just to use a crazy example, like they turn into a rampant axe murderer. Well, at that point, I say, you know what, we're not friends anymore. And by the way, you're evil now. So, you know, if you want to come back, if you want to question your axe murderer ways, I'm open to having a conversation if there's an opportunity there that opens up. But, you know,
okay.
So I think we're using love differently because you're like, well, I love her. And I'm like, well, I don't know. To me, shared likes and dislikes and a lot, like all that stuff doesn't matter as much as shared values.
I agree. And again, I think she and I have some deep shared values. We just have
where do your values diverge? Because there must be some divergence. I mean, she's preaching an evil ideology, which I think.
No, I think our values are the same. I think she has been convinced. Well, I know she's been convinced. She believes what I used to believe, which is that the way to combat racism is to. Now, they wouldn't describe it this way. I didn't describe it this way then because I couldn't see it because of what they changed the definition of words. They try to control you. Like, by the way, there was one quote I didn't read earlier that I wanted to read now since we're talking about words. It was, and this is from I've read this in Colette from an author, David Miller Haskell. Beware of any person or group that redefines words so that they no longer align with facts, common sense, and common usage. And so people who are in that ideology have been told, well, racism doesn't mean what it means. Racism now requires societal power, and they make them go through all these mental gymnastics because otherwise, how could you get someone who's opposed to racism to push this? You have to convince them that it's not racist. You have to redefine racism. You have to manipulate and use their desire to end this something horrible to get them to sell the horrible thing. And that's what, so we diverge on how to end. Let's just take let's take racism. She and I diverge on how to end it. But I would say we have a shared why, which is that treating people differently because of race is wrong and it's bigoted and you shouldn't do that. However, in practice, does she preach doing that? Yes.
Well, but do you have, my concern here is that, I don't know, like I'm partly coming around a little bit to your perspective, but like I'm not totally sure because I could be wrong. Look, by the way, I should have said this at the outset. I could have my own, we can all have our own psychological issues. Like I could have my own psychological issues that like, certainly there's shit in my life and childhood and everything. I could be like, you need to name evil because there was a lot of evil that was not named for me in my past. So I could totally be reacting to shit. You gotta get that? No, you got it. My question about values is you say that you share values and let's just stick to racism, for example. You would both like to eradicate racism, but I'm not sure. I think you're using the same word, but it's only the same phonetic sounds. It's not the same word. You actually think you share values. Maybe I'm asking you, do you think you share values? But in actuality, you just share the word racism is bad. You share that phrase, that sound out of your mouth, but those things mean different things to you. So you don't actually have shared values. You have shared phonetics.
The mailman just came by. By the way, my dogs think the mailman is evil.
Well, the mailman is evil. I'm with your dogs on that. God damn it.
So I would say no, I think you're wrong here. We do have the words mean the same thing to us.
So when you talk about racism with her and you say racism is not bigotry or plus power, it's just bigotry.
I haven't had that conversation with her, but
well, then how do you know you share that value? You brought this up.
I know because I'm thinking of my old self. I used to believe what she believes. My opinion about racism didn't change on it being wrong. What changed was my idea on what to do to end it.
So, okay, so maybe we can just instead of having a conversation about your relationship with her, let's have a conversation about your relationship with your past self. So your past self, you're saying that you have not changed your definition of racism at all.
Fundamentally, let me try to explain this the best way. I'm trying to figure out how to articulate this. they got me to accept the new definition for sure. That's how they got me to believe this wasn't racist. They got me to believe the whole racism requires, group power and blah, blah, blah. They got me to buy the prejudice plus power thing. But the whole reason that I got there in the first place, the whole reason I even cared and they got my attention and they were able to use me is because I opposed racism, like actual just treating people differently because of race.
Right.
They take that originating intent and belief and value. They take that value and then they twist the words.
The value with a corrupt value.
Yes, they take your value and they corrupt it.
So it's like an autoimmune disease, right? They take what should be fighting to protect your system and they turn that cell into something that actually attacks your system. Instead of, it actually does the opposite of what it's supposed to.
That's a great analogy. That's exactly what they do.
Okay, so my argument here is you don't share values because the value isn't the word. The value is the function of the thing. A cell that's behaving in let's use, I don't know enough biology to use like a good autoimmune, like sarcoidosis. What's an autoimmune disease? AIDS, T cells? I don't know. But a cell that's behaving as an autoimmune cell on a rampage is not the same function as a cell that's protecting the body. And you could say, well, we both believe in the cell, which is called a T cell. Yes, it is a T cell. We both call it a T cell. But you were duped into thinking that this other thing is a T cell, and it's not. And so I would say you actually don't share values because your value has been supplanted with an alternate value, and you don't know it. You didn't notice. But you're old, but you don't have the same value.
No, but I did, because how did I come out of it? That value there.
Because someone showed you. No, you realized that you were fooled. When you realized they were different, that's when you started questioning and coming out of it.
But my point is that value was still there. That's why I ultimately rejected this ideology, because I realized it was the exact opposite of what it claims to be. Because at its base, I never stopped believing that racism was wrong. I never stopped believing that you shouldn't treat people differently on the basis of race.
Well, but you did.
Functionally, I did.
It's back to value. Like, well, I don't believe people are different. It's like, this is the difference between like this weird value discussion of like, well, deep down.
No, but it's true.
The opposite of what I was doing. Like, who cares? We don't know. You never really know what's going on deep down. And it sounds to me more like, so you were fooled into flopping that value, switch that value through a sleight of hand. Someone said racism, and racism had a meaning for you. And you're like, yes, that's bad. Okay, good. We all agree. Racism, we fight against racism. And you dropped what they let you do, or encouraged you probably to do, was drop the context or drop the tie of that term to reality. So you didn't hold in your head in a very mature way what racism actually was as tied to reference in reality. You held it as an abstract that was too loosely tied to reality, which means severing it and replacing it with a different thing with the same name worked. And eventually you looked around and eventually, I think, re-derived kind of, you were like, wait a minute, if I actually try and tie this to reality, like it's not what I thought. I had an intuition about how it was tied to reality, but this thing goes against what I felt like it was tied to. And now that I see where it's tied, I need to reject this corrupt concept and return to the original concept of racism that I kind of loosely held, but now I hold more firmly. And I would argue now it will be impossible for someone to usurp your value of racism. They couldn't replace it now with a corrupt version.
No, because it's something I've actually thought about it for a long time. If you're rejecting programming, you kind of have to come to grips with it. Like you have to think about it for a long time. Well, I just want to, in the chat real quick, people are actually really active in the chat. I don't know if you're looking at it.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think they mostly but I love it. So it's because I want to have this conversation. Maybe I'm wrong.
Somebody says, I think Dyson is an idiot, but even I couldn't call him a fundamentally evil person.
By the way, so Fern is saying, by that logic, anyone that believes in a lie is evil. No, I didn't say that at all. I said you're judged not on what you believe, not on what you feel, not on what your soul is, because I don't even believe in a soul. You're judged on your actions. So you can do some evil actions once in a while. If you do evil actions once in a while, probably not fair to call you an evil person. If you do evil actions consistently over and over again and make them your career, I think you're in the territory where it's okay to say you're evil. And I think that's the only, we disagree because I'm using actions. And Lou points out, it seems Carter's arguing actions speak louder than words. And Keri is saying, I didn't know that those actions were counter to the value, therefore not evil.
I guess you could say that. Yeah. The actions I thought were good. Well, and this is what I started off with the quote while you were rebooting the Alexander Solzhenitsyn quote about like what is necessary for evildoers to do evil is a belief that they're doing good. And that's why this ideology scares me so much, is because people do believe that they're doing good, and you can do awful things.
That quote, Keri, is I mean, I would quote that.
Yeah, it's great.
Which is slightly different than evil. So would you call her an evildoer, but not an evil person?
Maybe, but I don't.
Okay, I'm interested by this.
Maybe, but I wouldn't, it's not important to me. Why would I call her that? Because she's my friend. So I believe her ideology is evil. I think that's better to focus on that than it is on her. Why is it important that I call her that?
Concept who's not your friend. Let's just someone like her. Would you call them an evildoer or?
I mean, it depends. It's hard for me to answer that in the third person. Yeah.
So you think that you can only
depends on the person.
Know what's in their heart?
I think we can judge people, and I mean we do. We make judgments whether we want to or not. About I don't know Michael Eric Dyson. I don't know what's in his heart, but I think I do, and I could be completely wrong. But when you do know people, then I think it's like I know her. I'm not gonna say something I don't believe to be true, and I don't believe that she's evil. So why would I say that?
Well, you shouldn't say it if you don't believe it. That's not.
I don't believe it.
I'm not asking you to go around saying things you don't believe. I'm trying to get you to change. Wait, Fern has a good.
Incompetent.
Yeah, I want to say. I mean, people are in chat, but not everyone's in chat. So Fern says, but if you do evil actions thinking they're good because you were lied to about the state of reality, that's not evil. That's incompetence. And this is actually. Yeah, and by the way, I agree, Herman. Like, yes, your objective, you don't call someone evil to try and save them. We have said that. I agree with that. It's not a good method. But getting to what Fern said, there might be a belief that I have. I need to think about this. There may be a belief that I have here that's fundamentally different from yours, and maybe a lot of people in the chats. I don't think incompetence is evil, but I do think if you are acting, you have an obligation to have thoroughly thought through. You have an obligation to use your brain and have thoroughly thought through and not evade. And I think the people who think they're doing good, we recognize there's people who know they're doing evil, fine, they're bad. People who think they're doing good, at some point, they are being driven by psychology and emotions. So you always have a choice. Your fundamental choice is think or not think. Something pops into your head about something. It's think or not think. It's shut it off or keep it on. Right? Go deeper or not. And obviously you can focus on different things. But there actually is something. I'll say, quote. I'll use the word sinful as an atheist. But I don't want to make it really bad. It's just there's a minor bad thing. The less you think, the worse of a person you are. And I'm not saying you need to be intelligent. Using whatever apparatus you happen to have, the more you're willing to evade when those thoughts come up in your head, when you're challenged with something, The more you choose the way I feel, I'm going to go with the way I feel and stop thinking about this thing instead of doing the uncomfortable thing, which is think harder about it. The more you choose that path, the worse of a person you are. I think that your human's primary tool of survival is their rational mind. And if you choose to evade over and over again consistently, but because why? It gets easier and easier to evade and harder to think the more you do it. And obviously, the more you think, the easier it gets. But when you are confronted with stuff, we're all confronted with truths and reality and things that bother us viscerally, that like for whatever reason, we have an emotional reaction to. And when you choose to ignore that and evade it, to use Christian terminology, that's a sin. You are failing to be human, because what makes you human is your rational capacity, and you're abdicating your responsibility to think about the thing that came into your head. Obviously, you can't think about everything all the time. You need to prioritize things. I'm not suggesting that you sit around like a computer going 100% all the time. You need to prioritize, and you got a lot of needs in your life. But those moments when we think about, choosing a career is something that you've thought about, presumably. So, and choosing your belief system, those are things that are worth thinking about pretty deeply. You can be forgiven for not thinking about how much you really want Cheerios versus Rice Krispies for breakfast, because that's not very important. But when you're starting to like, I'm gonna tackle this issue of racism or whatever, your obligation is to think. And you have, as a human, you've got power. You've got a rational apparatus. You've got the ability to influence other people. And so if you are not driving that vehicle that you operate consciously, that's negligence. It's worse than incompetence. It's negligence. And there is something wrong with negligence. I'm not saying that makes you evil. I'm trying to pull a thread there that Fern, I think, unintentionally brought up. I do think there's a difference between how I view this and how maybe a lot of people in the chat and you view it.
No, I tend to, I think I agree with most of what you just said, but somebody's asking,
do I have people do any of my friends lean left? Wait, which question are you asking?
Well, I was scrolling up earlier, actually. Somebody asked if the friend we've been talking about is religious or not. No, she's not. I mean, I think she's religious in that I believe SJW ideology is a religion. She follows it religiously, but no, she's not.
She would call herself an atheist.
She would probably call herself atheist or agnostic, I think. And then there was another question about like when I believed what I can't find it now, but when I believed what I used to believe, did I do evil things? Was I therefore evil or just misled? I can't find that quote or that question. But yes, I pushed what I believe now to be an evil ideology. I was pushing my ideology, and I think that's evil. And I did other evil things. And I don't, however, think I was an evil person. I think I was operating with a faulty roadmap. I think I'd been sold this bill of goods, that the belief system took what I believed to be true and what I thought I was doing. It convinced me to do the opposite of what I wanted to do. It convinced me that doing the opposite of what I wanted to do was doing what I wanted to do. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and I want to say something though. The moral responsibility does lie with the person who convinced you of that. Like, I'm not, without taking that away, right? That this did happen to you. I'm agreeing. Yes, you were given a bad roadmap. That thing did happen to you. What I don't like about your statement is it lacks moral agency.
What do you mean?
You're not a passive cup that someone filled with the wrong liquid.
Oh, I don't believe I am.
You had agency.
I did. And
you failed your responsibility to vet the map that you were given.
I did. I don't disagree.
Right. And I want to be clear, because I think it sometimes sounds like you're just like, wow, these people are just mistaken. Oops, it's not their fault. it partly is not their fault. Yes, there's a bunch of people who actually, like your friend, pushed it on them probably when they were young. But it is also their fault. It is also your responsibility. I've been wrong about things before. I've had bad belief systems in the past. I've made mistakes. I'm probably some shit that I've been saying in the last year is wrong. And 5 years from now, I'll be like, oh, I can't believe I said that. I was so wrong. We all make mistakes.
Well, we don't disagree on this.
But it's our responsibility. And I wouldn't say, well, I had a bad roadmap. So
I would. I don't disagree with you on any of that, but I did have a bad roadmap.
And right, but that wouldn't be, but that doesn't excuse me from my responsibility.
I don't think it does.
Right. Okay. By the way, so wait, hold on. Someone asked, I want to talk about this because it is relevant. You live in far left, says Carter, you live in far left San Francisco. Are all those people evil or just wrong? Do you have any friends that lean left? Well, first of all of the people here are not social justice warriors. I think, young man, there's some people in the chat who live in San Francisco. But so they just hide it. Are they evil or are they wrong? I would say the ones who are, if you've chosen to take action consistently to push the ideology, then you have a moral responsibility to have thoroughly vetted the ideology to the best of your ability. And that should have uncovered some things. Like when Keri vetted it, she uncovered like, ooh, that's not racism. Racism is the other thing. And so if you failed in that task, it's not incompetence, it's negligence, and it elevates it's elevated to gross negligence, which makes you morally responsible for that. So I would say, yeah, if they're pushing evil ideology as a regular career type thing all the time, not just if they like make a comment off the cuff to someone or whatever, because they don't think about it much and they got a real job and they're busy. But if that's their chosen career, yeah, I would say that makes them evil, because it's like saying I'm gonna think of another Godwin Law example that I can trigger some Hitler talk. It's like saying, well, I didn't realize that the gas was deadly. I was just turning the valve. Yeah, okay, but your job was to turn the valve, and you probably should have asked, like, what am I doing? Like, what's happening here? What is this that I'm doing? And obviously that's a much more simple answer to derive, but than pushing social justice ideology, that's more complex. But in the answer to, do I have any friends that lean left? I don't even know what left and right means. All of my close friends are limited government people. There's varying degrees of limited government people. I do not have any friends who are busybodies who think that everything should be centrally planned and people should be, forced to do a bunch of stuff. I've got a couple acquaintances who think that way, but they're not really friends. One of them I respect a lot. He's brilliant, extremely intelligent guy, but he focuses on tech, and he's just I haven't really tried to save him. He's like an acquaintance. I see him once in a while. I love talking to the guy. Is he a friend? Not really, because when they come for my guns or to throw me in jail for hate speech, he'll probably support that. So I think that pretty much makes him not my friend. There is this argument that I really like, which is the against me argument. And I've heard it from Stefan Molyneux, but I heard it prior to Stefan Molyneux, so I don't know where it originated. But when people push stuff, your so-called friends push things, sometimes it's helpful to just say, like, well, would you do that against me? Right? Again, is that, oh, you think all people should do X, Y, Z? Well, what about me? Should I be thrown in jail if I do that? Would you shoot me if I do those things? Should I pay reparations? Right? If I don't pay reparations, should I be locked up? Should my daughter be locked up? Should she be told she's evil? Yeah. What about us? What about the people you know? And I think that's helpful. And I think if you're the kind of person who asks those questions, and I do, it's very difficult to be people with the friends with people who are like, oh yeah, you should totally get shot. I'm like, all right, I don't. The fact that you also like Stranger Things isn't enough to keep us like. I got shit to do. I don't need a lot of friends. I like a few very close friends. That's the kind of person I am, and so.
A quick word on friendship. So again, to come back to this book, we should definitely add this book to book club, by the way. He talks about 3 types of friends in Love Your Enemies, 3 types of friendship and I think he takes all of this from Aristotle. But the first type is transactional. It's like the type of friendship where you're both getting something from the relationship. Like you're friends with your UPS guy at work because he delivers your packages for you, and he's friends with you because you're giving him a job, that whatever. Those are transactional. And if the working relationship went away, you may not be friends anymore. And you don't really know much about this person, usually, the transactional friendships. And so when things change, they're not the type of friend that you have like deep and meaningful conversations with usually.
I don't even call that a friend, just to be clear. Like I call that like an acquaintance or whatever.
Yeah. So transactional friendships or acquaintances. The other one he talked about is like pleasurable friendships, which is a friendship where you derive some type of pleasure from, like your friend Mary is really fun to be around and she makes you laugh a lot. And so you're getting pleasure from being in her presence. And with a pleasure type friendship, there may or may not be transactional things, but you enjoy being around her. And you typically with pleasure type friendships also don't get very deep because you'd be afraid that if you guys disagreed on something too big, that you wouldn't be friends anymore and you wouldn't get the benefit of her company anymore. So the third type he talks about is like the perfect friendship. And he gives a great illustration in the book of Cornel West, who is very progressive left.
Yeah, I know Cornel West.
Actually really likes a lot.
You mentioned that I know.
Woo-hoo. Yeah, we mentioned someone actually really like a lot of what Cornel West says. I agree with him a lot, believe it or not. So Cornel West and how he's really good friends with this other professor, Robbie George, and they couldn't be more diametrically opposed in terms of ideology, but they are best friends. And if you hear them talk about each other, they talk about how much they love each other and how they're like brothers because they have a shared value. And that value is truth and inquiry and trying to get to the truth of the matter and having students modeling a friendship for students. You can see so students can see how it's possible to passionately disagree with someone and not dehumanize them, I guess. And so let me read this part where he says, the highest form of friendship, the perfect friendship in Aristotle's telling, is one based on willing the good of the other and a shared sense of what is virtuous and true. So you would be like alike in virtue. So this is kind of what you and I were talking about, shared values or whatever. And
yes.
And he goes on to say, like, so most of my perfect friends, like you, it's very obvious that we have shared virtues and values. Having a perfect friend, like the friend we've been talking about, who disagrees with me on almost everything, having a perfect friend like her, who I do believe we're like in virtues, or shared idea of what's virtuous, is healthy for me. It's not just about like, hey, maybe one day she'll come around. It's healthy for me because then I get to practice disagreement with someone who I love and who loves me. I get to practice disagreement with someone, and it also keeps me from becoming like that. The quote I became obsessed with for a while when I was just starting to leave SJW ideology was the Nietzsche quote about, be careful fighting monsters lest you also become a monster, because everything I was looking at in my belief system was like, whoa, like, what woke me up was seeing what friggin' monsters people on my side had become. And in the pursuit of monsters, right? Like they think they're slaying racism and sexism, and they don't even realize they are the racists and sexist, right? And so I don't want to do that. I don't want to become a monster just over here this time. I don't want to become a person who's like making value judgments without getting the facts, or without having a friend like her helps me in a way to empathize with and to not forget that I used to believe what she believes. And sometimes I have a tendency to do that. And so this is good for me and healthy for me, and it keeps me from becoming a monster. That's my view on it. Like I don't want to get to the place where I believe everyone who believes what I used to believe is like the one I called evil, is like the one who has no part of her mind open for introspection, and it's just a judgmental cunt. Sorry,
Yeah.
just say
no.
like.
So, go ahead. Are you done or no? I don't want to interrupt you.
No, I just I'm laughing because I said I would never say that word again, but then I felt like it's really appropriate.
Were you the one who shared the thing with me that was you know who gets upset by the word cunt? Cunts.
I find that so funny.
That's great.
I wanted to tell you this Hitler joke earlier. I don't remember who said this joke, but in Hitler's defense, he did kill Hitler.
Right. Yeah. No, I've heard that.
I don't know who said that, but
he did kill Hitler. Hitler. So the second tier of friends that you mentioned, this is maybe my own dysfunction. People can, armchair psychologize me all day if they want now. That second tier of friends, I just don't have. I don't have any. I don't have any like pleasure friends. If I abhor small talk. I don't like small talk. So if I can't go deep with someone, I just don't know. It's a waste of my time. So I don't care. I don't want to have those friends. I've never had those. I've never been the kind of person that can maintain friendships on that level. And I'm uninterested in it. On the, I guess what Aristotle was calling the perfect friendship level, I do agree with Aristotle's definition, at least broadly. And the difference here, Keri, is virtues for me. Virtue is measured by actions, and this is getting back to what Lou said in chat. Virtue is measured by actions, not by intent, not by their heart, not by their feelings. It's measured by their behavior. And obviously, someone that I've been really good friends with it does an action for a while, and then they do something that's a bad action. Obviously, I'm not going to write them off. I'm going to confront them about it and have a discussion about the action, and maybe we'll disagree. Like you and I don't agree on everything, but we agree on a substantial portion of what's important virtue-wise, right? And I have people in my life with whom I agree more than you. But I don't have a lot of people. I don't have anyone who is just like, we like to watch Stranger Things together or soccer together or whatever. But we, and I actually don't like the Cornel West thing you talked about. Reminds me also of what was the conservative and liberal pundits? They were married.
Oh yeah.
Was his name James?
Carville.
Carville. Yeah, and his wife. I don't remember who his wife was.
Mrs. Carville. I'm kidding. People are gonna hate that.
I don't think that makes any sense, because I think if you take your ideas seriously, ideas aren't just something. So this is the problem. This is why I don't like the James Carville thing, and I don't like the Cornel West thing, because I think people who have, and I'm not talking about you and your friend. You're not married to her, right? But if you're building a life with someone, or you're like best friends with someone, if you take your ideas seriously, you can't marry them. You can't have children with someone who you think is fundamentally propagating an evil ideology on the world.
I agree with that.
And if you do, it means you don't take your ideas seriously. So I don't think James Carville or his wife, whatever her name, Mrs. Carville, I don't think they took their ideas seriously. I think they're just mouthing off as a career. And I think the same is probably true of Cornel West and the other professor. They get paid to just speak about it and blah, blah, blah. Let's go argue about philosophy. And actually, none of it really matters, because fuck it. We're all nihilists and we're going to go out for a drink later anyway, or whatever it is, right? There's a discounting of the importance of philosophy, and and therefore the importance of morality. And we can I guess we can end this soon. I guess I don't think you and I are gonna agree.
Yeah.
But wait, people on the left tend to exile family members or Trump supporters because supporters are evil. People on the right tend to not do that, according to the New York Times. It sounds like he wants to engage in that behavior, Carter. Family, if you want to exile family members, go ahead, but probably not for who they voted for. But Yeah, I mean, I would say I kind of do. I'm not in a cult. Like, I don't think you should divorce yourself from everyone in your life who doesn't agree with you. But again, the small segment of the population that is actively pushing an evil ideology, yeah, you should exile them. I am saying that. Maybe a bunch of
Yeah,
people disagree with me,
I don't
but
agree. Yeah.
you know, you shouldn't condone them. You should get rid of them. You shouldn't help them. They should not have your support. If they are again, if they're actively pushing this stuff. And Keri, maybe you would agree if they fall into your evil category, maybe you would agree. But you have this other category of like, well, these people aren't evil because they mean well. Right? And so that's where we disagree. It's just that little band of people, right? So, and you know, with family or like long friendships, there's other things that come to play. So you have to balance everything out. But I don't know if my dad were, if my dad or my mom or my sister was, I don't know, AOC or someone like, yeah, I wouldn't go to Thanksgiving with them. Absolutely.
Oh, you see, I think you kind of have a responsibility to sometimes, like, it just depends. Like I
Friend, by the way, Westy Forte, I am an exhausting friend. And I'm an exhausting. But I also leave them alone. I'm also like the kind of person who never makes first contact. So like we talk once in a while, but yeah, I am. But my friends are as exhausting as me on these issues. Like this is how they think. There are other people like me. And I would argue we're the people who have not bought into the moral relativism that most of the people, I'm not trying to diss our chat people. I love our people, but like, I think a lot of you still have a lot of moral relativism in you. And I think it's because you grew up in this culture where we've just been like, don't have conflict. Everything's okay. One person's truth is a different person's lie. And that's good for him, but not good for them. There is objective truth. There is objective morality. And I think moral relativism is very dangerous. And so, Keri disagrees with me. That's okay.
No, I agree. It is dangerous. But in this case, it's funny because in Arthur Brooks' book, Love Your Enemies, he talks about this, how he's always been the person arguing against moral relativism. But then a crazy thing happened in 2016 where suddenly everybody became a moralist. And he's like, you've got people on one side calling the other side evil and people on that side calling the other side evil. And suddenly everyone's like, has become all about they get to decide who's moral. And so he says he feels, I'm trying to find that part. But anyway, he talks about how it's weird to feel like he's put in the position of moral relativist now because what he's trying to do is bring people together by helping them discover their shared lies. So I think you agree.
So you're seeing like, I would argue, Keri, both are true. I would argue that there is a abhorrent moral relativism where we're afraid to call out actual evil. And because people like the feeling of being able to condemn, right? We then turn around and do it for reasons that are irrelevant and shouldn't be. You shouldn't call people like, I don't call anyone who voted for anyone I don't like evil by virtue of the fact that they pulled the wrong lever.
Right.
Like they are not evil for vote. They may be evil and have voted that way, you know, coincidentally or because they're evil, but they're not who they voted for. I'm not going to be like, they're an evil person because they voted for Hillary Clinton or they voted for Trump or what, like, but that is a pent up desire to have some sort of like moral standards because we don't have any. And that's like, aha, moral standards. I can appear moral. I'm going to condemn the deplorables. Right. But that's just as bad as moral relativism. That's not condemning the actual evil people. And so what I'm arguing for is stop doing both. Like start condemning the actual evil people and stop condemning all the people that aren't actually evil. They just disagree. They may be wrong.
This is the chapter I was looking for. It's chapter 4. How can I love my enemies if they are immoral?
Yeah, well, that's a religious thing because I would say you don't need to love your enemies if they're immoral. You don't need to love your enemies. You need to treat them with benevolence and the respect of human beings. But love is a strong word. And actually, the whole Bible thing there's like, I don't remember back in the day. I remembered, but like, there's like 14 different words for the word love or something. Like when you go, I have a concordance of the Bible sitting behind me on the shelf. Like if you look up those passages, a lot of times there's like romantic love and this kind of love and love that just means respect and whatever. So it's I always get bothered when people like quote the Bible in English and use the word love, and then like it's tied to all these other things for us as English speakers, and that's not what was written. Not that I'm Christian, but that's not what was written. It's a specific.
What's not?
That the word love, I don't know that particular passage, but that word love has a precise meaning. It doesn't mean love. It doesn't mean love in the way that we use the word love. We use the word love to mean I love pizza. I love my wife. I love arguing. I love my friends. I
don't think it means the same as I love pizza. It's an action.
My point is we don't, what?
It's an action. Love in this case is an action. Loving your neighbor is an action. It's not like, and actually loving people you don't like is, I think, what we're called to do. It's easy to love people that you like.
Well, and again, this is why I think the English language fails us here, because it's bothersome to especially non-Christians, perhaps. Maybe Christians are more used to the word love being overloaded. But I would say you don't have to love people you don't like. You don't have to love people who are your enemies. You do have to treat them with benevolence and respect and kind of like, and if those actions, if treating him in that way is something that Christians want to call love, because the Bible verse translates into the word love because English doesn't have enough words to distinguish, fine. But the distinction is important to me, because I think a lot of people don't get the distinction, and it is important. You're not called upon, even if you're religious, you're not called upon to like be in love with your enemies, and like that. I don't think you can look it up, but I don't think that's what's meant.
I think we are. Okay. We should wrap this up. We are almost 2 hours in. Thank you guys so much for being so active and giving us good questions and stuff
this is
in
fun.
the chat. Yeah. And Fern, I think you would really like this book in particular based on some of the stuff you're writing. And all of you, Westy as well. Yeah, Westy, gradations.
And by the way, a lot of the people that disagreed with me, your comments were insightful and great, and like it was good. I want to have this discussion. I'm actually not done thinking about it, but
and you're all evil.
Yeah, you're all evil. I do want to point out, I do want to fight moral relativism, because it is, I think it's pernicious. So that's where I'm coming from. But yeah, I appreciate the chats. It's good. And Keri, later today, just remind people, speaking of morality, we had a great conversation with Dr. Rachel Brown. She's friends with Milo. She's a professor of medieval history at the University of Chicago. I'm going to post it later today. She got me rethinking about the seeds of Western civilization, which is something I care about a lot, which was awesome. She's got me totally rethinking that. She actually has me appreciating Christian culture a lot more, which is great. And I want to read and do a lot more there. So it was an awesome conversation. She did quote, I'm going to end on something, Keri, that I think supports your side, at least from the Christian perspective, because it's something that Rachel brought up, Dr. Brown brought up in the thing. She says, she talked about Christians in medieval times actually being able to empathize with and understand. He talks about Bartolome de las Casas, who argued for the inherent goodness of Native American religions. And he argued that even though these Native American religions included human sacrifice and cannibalism, his basic argument was, yes, but they don't know any better. So they're virtuous by the best of their own standards and their own ability. And so he was arguing that actually they're ignorant, they're not bad, they're virtuous as best they can. They haven't been taught the Bible yet. That was his perspective. I don't necessarily agree, but it's a good it's someone that agrees with you, Keri, and I don't know.
I wouldn't say I agree with that person.
Oh no, okay. Sorry. Keri likes cannibalism. End of conversation. All right, well, fair enough. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'll post that video later. Don't forget, what next week? What Wednesday and Thursday? We're doing our live viewing party for the Democratic debates. So, all right.
Woohoo! Bye, guys.
I'm gonna press stop now or something. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I can't use my computer, so we're never ending.